Today on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast, we're going to talk with voice actress Katie Lee all about what it's like to be Sheila on the 80s cartoon Dungeons & Dragons and Connie from Adventures in Odyssey. And we'll get to all of that right after this. Before we get into our interview with Katie Lee, I want to read some scripture. Let's start with 1 Kings 19:11-13. And he said, "Go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle, and went out, and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him, and said, What doest thou here, Elijah? And Acts 2:5-11. Now there were staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment, because each one heard their own language being spoken. Utterly amazed, they asked, Aren't these who are speaking Galileans? And how is it that each one of us hears them in our native tongue? Parthians, Medes, Emilites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, and Cappadocia, Pontus, and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, parts of Libya, near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretians and Arabs. We heard them declaring the wonders of God in our own tongues." I do believe that the spoken word is powerful, especially when we read from the Word of God aloud. It hits differently than when we just, read it silently in our own heads. I would encourage you to try it sometime. In your daily Bible reading, try reading the scriptures out loud. It engages extra senses, like hearing, and also it's kinesthetic, because your mouth and lips and move. It's physical. Give it a try sometime and just see what effect it has on your daily scripture reading. Now, let's jump right into our interview with Katie Lee. We did have some technical issues. I think we got most of them solved before we actually hit the record button. But now, Katie Lee. Katie, it is so great to have you here. For those of you who don't know Katie Lee, she is the voice of that raised, like all of us, everybody. She's done voice acting for many, many years. A voiceover veteran that has been Connie Kendall in the world's longest running international radio drama, Adventures in Odyssey. She is the voice of Baby Rolf from Jim Henson's Muppet Babies, if you're familiar with that one.
I am.
She was also in Darkwing Duck, and for those of you who are, of my vintage, you might remember her as Sheila the Thief in the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon from the 80s. She's also been Richie Rich and a Gummy Bear, and recently done some anime stuff as well. And one of the ones that I think is just the funniest, that you are young Han Solo in Lego Star Wars Padawan Menace.
You bet I am. That's right. I am.
Welcome to
But the name's not Ian, it's Han. Yes. Okay. Did you see that show?
I have seen a part of it. I have
It's
not
funny.
seen the whole thing.
It's funny. You should watch it.
the Lego Star Wars stuff is hysterical. I do really enjoy it. So Katie, tell us about yourself. How did this whole thing start? How did you become such a big thing in voice acting over the years?
Longevity, I think. I'm still here. That really helps a lot. Being at the right place at the right time. I had a report card that said good student but talks too much. I'm trying to make a report card. Really being at the right place at the right time and talking to the right people. And, back in the 80s, there weren't that many of us around. So there was a smaller pool of talent to draw from. And I happened to be swimming in that pool at the time. So I'm very fortunate. I really think I learned on the job from watching some of the best other people, and I don't know, God has been very gracious to me.
So, well, let's kind of start there. I mean, your longest running character is definitely Connie Kendall.
Yeah.
How did that all come about?
It came about, I like to think it came about through prayer. Because I was already doing Dungeons and Dragons around the time I became a born-again believer, as they say, and really, really wanted to be faithful to God. But I was still pretty new, had to work all that out. But, I just wanted to do something that honored God. I wanted to work on projects that, that would glorify Him. And at the same time, there was this book that came out called Turmoil in the Toy Box. And I thought I was part of demonic activity, according to this guy. I was anyway. And I really,
It's a part of the 80s satanic panic.
Yes. Is that what they call it?
That we have discussed on this show a few times, because we're not afraid to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and play tabletop role-playing games here at Christian Nerds Unite. So,
I think that's how I met you. Anyway, so I didn't know if I should quit my job because it was working in cartoons, if that was dishonoring to God. But I really did want to do something. And so that, maybe I'll be part of the drama ministry in this church. Maybe but I'm not much of a stage person. I am an improv actor. And when I auditioned for them, and they said, and I was great. I'll just say that right now. I was really great. But they said,
no
we
doubt.
prayed about it, and we think you haven't been a Christian long enough. I was like, okay, all right, whatever. So God taught me some humility. And about maybe a year after that, year or two, I just kept doing my work. And I was driving, listening to Focus on the Family, and I heard the Family Portraits broadcast, one of them. And I recognized Hal Smith's voice because we've been working on Dumbo Circus. And I knew him anyway. We all knew each other. And I realized they were using professional actors. And I just happened to be in the same town as Focus on the Family while I was listening to the program. So I drove over there. I found their address. And I gave them my reel-to-reel demo and said I would love to work with them, since I could hear they were using actors, voice actors. And it just kind of happened from there. They liked me, and I got to do some stuff over there. And I did one of the family portraits. I've just recently become aware of that. And then they wrote Odyssey. I'm trying to see if I can tilt my camera down just a little bit. And then they said they were going to write a part for me in the show. And that's pretty fantastic, isn't it?
How long have you been doing that character?
Well, this is our 35th year we've started.
Wow.
So long time. Yeah, it's really amazing, and I just pinch myself because, how many how many Christian radio shows have been on this long? How many people get to be Connie? Only one. And it's me.
That's awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
So outside of Connie, what have been some of the kind of the highlights that you have really enjoyed in your voice acting work?
Well, I totally loved working for Jim Henson on the Muppet Babies. That was another answer to, my biggest fantasy, because I was a huge, huge Muppet fan. So that was amazing. And not only to work on the show, but to be voicing like one of his classic characters. And it's so funny, too. It seems like, when you look back, and I'm saying this to encourage people, some things are just sort of, I don't know, just sort of meant to be, I guess, because the way I bumped into the director who was having auditions, and he never thought of me for the Muppet Babies, but he was having a hamburger, and I said, "What are you doing these days?" And he mentioned it, and I went berserk because I was a huge, huge Muppet fan. And he said, "Well, we're having auditions tomorrow, but we'll have you back for the callbacks." I'm like, "Okay, no, you won't." I went home and called my agent. I go, "I have never done this before. They're having auditions tomorrow. I have to be there." So somehow she got me an appointment. And the director, actually, that's the director from Dungeons and Dragons. So we had already been working a few years. So we were friends, and then I thought, well, who could I be? Because he asked me if I could do Baby Piggy, and I said, Baby Piggy's a guy. But then I started watching, and he said, well, they're babies, and I was watching, I rented a video and watched the Muppets Take Manhattan, I think, is all they had. I thought, I think I can do Rolf. And Rolf was a character that I always loved since I was a little girl, because I must have watched him on the Jimmy Dean show in the 60s when I was a little kid, and I just knew him. I just really related to him. And so I did the audition, and eventually I got the call that I got the job, which was awesome. And the director, Hank Soroyan, he told me, he goes, "You're one of the few people who even knew who Rolf was." Because he's not a big popular Muppet, right? People get the call, and everybody knows who Kermit is, and everybody knows who Piggy is.
But Rolf always had the best songs because he played piano.
Yeah. I didn't get to, he didn't even have a lot of lines. And I'm not one of those actors who cares. I'm just happy to be at work because we all get paid the same. And they'd come in and apologize and say, well, some of the writers, "Oh, we're really sorry you don't have that much to say." I'm like, I don't care. I got my crocheting. I'm all good.
Cash the check and go home.
Yeah, whatever, and it feels like a lot of pressure anyway, right? The more work you have to do, the harder it is. I'm not that, I am hardworking, but as needed. So, I'm okay. And songs, we didn't sing too much, but a couple very sweet friends actually, one was like assistant to the producer. She wrote a script along with Star Kaplan, and it was Valentine's Day scripts. This is kind of apropos. And Star actually had some heart and lung problems, but they wrote this episode, the Valentine's episode, and Rolf gets to sing this song that was like everything I felt about the cast, and it's called "You're Special to Me." And he doesn't, and the lyrics are, kind of like Rolf. He says, "People don't applaud when I walk by. I'm not too much for telling jokes. In fact, I'm kind of shy. But at my piano, I'm a king. I can say most anything. And especially today, I'm gonna try. You're special to me." And it was just, I thought, wow, I get to sing that because this is how I really felt about everybody anyway. So
that's awesome.
And they wrote it for me. And they'd try. These two girls would try to write stuff that had lines in it for me. But I didn't need their sympathy. It was very nice.
Well, so you also did Darkwing Duck. You
I
were
did Darkwing Duck.
now. What was your character there?
Hunker Buttlefoot. Hunker Buttlefoot. I lived next door to Mr. Mallard in Gosselin. And my dad's name was Herb Muddlefoot. And my brother's name was Tank. And so I had to go next door so I wouldn't get clobbered all day long by him.
Oh, my goodness.
But it was amazing. Jim Cummings played Darkwing Duck and Herb Muddlefoot. Two great characters.
Now, you have you've worked for Disney and, obviously the Muppets. And, well, actually, I was going down your list and I was thinking, man, you work for all these companies. And I'm thinking, no, they're all Disney now.
Now they're all Disney. Disney owns my entire library of work, and they don't ever intend to show it, Ricky. So that's why I'm here making a YouTube show, because it was huge at the time, and I don't think
Absolutely.
people know much. Well, now they have Disney Plus, so they've got Darkwing on there, and they've got the Gummy Bears on there now, which is nice. But for a long time, people didn't know those shows existed because Disney wasn't running them.
Yeah. Well, and there is a rumor that Darkwing Duck is talking about a revival of some sort.
Yeah, they were planning it, but not with me.
Not with you.
Not with me.
So what is coming up for Katie Lee? What is kind of the next adventure? Are there things you can tell us about?
Well, we're still doing Odyssey. So that's a thing. And they're doing something. They're starting something new over there, but I don't know what it is yet. They haven't explained it to me. And, of course, this past year I did a YouTube show with Will Ryan. Every week we put out a show. And that was supposed to lead us to do personal appearances and stuff like we were doing on our can't call it a podcast. It's not a podcast. It's a show. I don't want to get in trouble by the crew of one who produces it. But then my dear friend got real sick and passed away. And so that plan went out the window. But we're still doing the show and having guests on, just goofing off with some great friends of his who I want to talk about. Will and Kimmy Robertson, who's also on Odyssey, and Townsend Coleman, who, nobody just does Odyssey. They all have this amazing background, so it's so fun to talk to them. And our lives have overlapped in so many ways. I mean, people don't know. If they watch our Tell You Later, that's TELLYALATER. If they watch it, they'll find out that Townsend and Will knew each other in Ohio before they moved to California. So Townie has on the radio, and Will, who is an artist and a songwriter and a script writer and a musician and did everything, actually designed Townsend's logo when he was on the radio. So,
oh, wow.
Real interesting stuff. What else? I've been directing. I want to direct some more. I have a show on YouTube called Chi Chi Love. I mean, it's pretty crazy. The scripts come from Sweden, but I get to direct, which I enjoy doing, and I play one of the dogs in the show named Rosie. But that's on YouTube, but it's got like bazillion views, so somebody's watching.
I'm not familiar with it. Now, is this an animated?
It's animated.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much content on, and a lot of people are putting their cartoons on YouTube. Forget Netflix, they're going straight to YouTube. So I wanted to direct, and the studio gave me the opportunity. Oh, I am doing other shows, and I don't think it's a secret. This other one, it hasn't come out yet, right? I don't know.
Is it on
made
IMDb
in Russia?
Yet?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
No. So I've been recording that. Some people might like to know that I've been on Blade and Soul for years. That's a video game.
Oh, yes. You actually have quite a list of video games you've been in.
Yeah, well, that one I've been doing for a long time. I died, and then I came back. I'm like, why am I here again? And they said, "Oh, that's the way these things work. There's new moves you get to dictate." So I play actually about 8 characters in Blade and Soul, but the main one, Brother Hajun, is the one that died originally, and he teaches the player how to do stuff. But I'm also the system voice in Blade and Soul. I'm in the system voice on Miyagi. I don't know if you know that game too. That's
Okay.
on Miyagi, and I've done a couple characters for that. But Blade and Soul, man, you can watch on YouTube people playing the game, like adults crying when my character dies. It's like amazing because they, film themselves playing, and it's eye-opening.
Well,
So that's fun.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I know, at least in the past, I mean, COVID's kind of messed the world up, but in the past, you've done public appearances, and you've met you've met your fans in real life. What is it like to meet somebody who is just enamored by the fact that they finally got to meet one of their favorite voice actors?
It's breathtaking, because, I mean, we did a lot of this stuff. These 35-year-olds were 7,
Mm-hmm.
They were little kids. You don't know, and you do it, and it takes a long time for this. Well, now that there's these Comic-Cons, but most of the people who come are like in their 20s to their mid-30s or 40s, and like Townsend had said to me, it makes what we've done so worthwhile, because you don't know, like we make each other laugh in the studio, but you don't know the impact you have on people, and it's really overwhelming. It's really put into perspective what we do, and that it is a blessing. And people, I met a girl just last week before at Disneyland. She saw that I was at Disneyland and sent me a message. And she was 44, and like she was crying. And she was really nice too. We ended up hanging out and going on rides together. But she said, I've listened to you all my life. I've lived in different countries. I've taken Odyssey with me. And other people just come up and, Totally Spies meant a lot to them. I did a show called Totally Spies, or got me able to say, "See, I told you," to their friend, there was a show like this. And, it's just, I think fans don't realize that it is probably equally as exciting for us to meet them and see the expression on their face. Or if I do a character voice and, like somebody your age is like they lose it. And I don't know how old you are, but maybe
I was gonna say, I just turned 50, and so I was 12 years old when you were doing Sheila.
Oh, okay.
So you are part of the formative years of my life there.
And it's so funny because there's Facebook groups. Now with the internet, I remember long time ago when the internet first came out, that I remember seeing it. People were like still talking about the scripts and how the show ended, and people are still writing, and they're re-rendering video,
Yes.
and they're working on the scripts, and it's just amazing how this is like this huge following for Dungeons and Dragons. And it was one of my first jobs, so I really didn't know what I was doing at all. I was just thankful to have a job, And it's just so great to, do the voice and watch people just lose it. Because, I'm the same way. Every time, if I ever see, I see Townie a lot, but still, I'll ask him to say spoon, and I just think that's hilarious. And, what's his name? Who does Johnny Bravo? I can't think of his name at the moment. But I love Johnny Bravo too, so when I see him, I want him to, our ears are so, the way we take in sound, I think it's so internal. It's so intimate. And I think we process that even differently than we do visual stuff that we see. I think you could go into a room and see your favorite on-camera actor, but when you hear them talk, it like adds something else, you know? And Odysseys, I mean, people listen to these Odyssey shows all day long in their sleep. I mean, they've got the shows memorized. It's like a huge, huge part of their lives. And I mean, incredible stories that people share. It's fascinating to us, and then they really care too. They're like family. When Will passed away, a lot of people sent me notes saying, we know you were really good friends, and just, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect so many people to, I don't know, I guess separate the characters from the friendships we are outside of the studio. I don't know. But, so, yes, going to cons, I would be happy doing that the rest of my life, I think, just meeting people, because it's so thrilling. I told him I want to retire and go sit in a rocking chair outside of the visitor center at Focus on the Family and just greet people. I would be a hoot.
Sounds great. So talk to me a little bit about getting into a character. I've seen interviews with some people, and it's like acting's purely a job, and they play the character and then they walk away and they never want to think about it again. What's it like to get into character? Because you're mostly doing characters that are have a little longer longevity. You're playing a character that's going to be around for a little while, a lot of times.
Well, you don't know that at the time. You don't know it at the time. But I do coach. I do, if people are interested, they go to my website. I coach people. I coach voice acting. And I do workshops, but I haven't scheduled any for this year yet. I've been really lame. I do some stuff with the Global Voice Acting Academy, too. But, a lot of things go into creating a character. And usually if you listen to shows, they evolve. The first episode, you're going to hear something different maybe 5 episodes down, because the actor finally figures out where they fit in, in the story and the cast, and that plays a part in developing, like, their dialogue. Like, you kind of get a feel for how they talk and how they think and all that stuff. So it takes a while to develop a character. I don't think anybody's character stays the same from the first episode. You look at the picture. First you have to audition, usually. And you look at the drawing to get an idea. And then there's usually a character description. And but when I did Darkwing Duck and I went into audition, the director knew me. And I said, what do you want? And she goes, that little boy you do? Just do that. So I'm like, okay. But you don't know their relationship with the other characters until you play the script, So you can't act in a vacuum. Jess Harnell always says voice acting, little V, big A. So then it's who am I acting with? What's going on, And you get in the character. I tell the people I coach, you have to put on their costume, but it's all imaginary. I mean, I think it takes kind of a special brain. Those of us who are voice actors, most are improv actors, but you have to see yourself almost from the outside and the inside out. Because you don't have the physical stuff that on-stage actors have, but you have to feel it and imagine it as if it were there. I don't know if anybody understands what I'm saying, but, when you're reading kids a storybook and you're looking at the pictures, you see what they look like, and you try to find a voice that goes along with it, right? And
I had 2 girls. I actively did that. It annoyed one. The other one liked it.
Isn't it funny? Isn't that funny? I mean, my daughter used to say to me, Mom, do you always have to do voices? Yeah, I think I do. Sorry. Does that bother you? I mean, I think it makes it a little more interesting, doesn't it? I
Makes
went
it more
to,
fun for me since I've read this book 15 times.
at least, right? We were at, in Holland, Michigan, Focus on the Family opened a bookstore there. And so I was over there at Christmas time. I created, I'll tell you what else. There's a lot of new stuff. I created a line of Connie candles.
Oh,
And
really?
they're on my
Okay.
website, yes. And they're really scrumptious. There's just 2 right now. I may just narrow it down to the raspberry ripple, but I have like a chocolate soda and a raspberry ripple, and they smell amazing. And I have some in travel tins that I'll take to cons, and then I have some in glass that look like real ice cream sodas, but they're pretty heavy. I can't travel with them, but I can ship them. Anyway, how did I get on that? Oh, so we're at the bookstore, and I would have our book. Will and I wrote a book called Adventures in Odyssey, and now the bonus edition is out. So I had some books and I had some candles, but I said I'll read a story to the kids for Christmas. It was around Christmas time, so they all sat around, and I read a story that they had on the shelf. And then I heard a couple days later someone said, I bought the book that you were reading, and then my kid said to me, why can't you read it like she did? So I realized not everybody reads stories by changing the voices of the characters, but it's kind of like second nature to me. I don't know how it would seem boring. Like you said, it's boring to the reader
Yes.
to not come up with something fun. But anyway, what the heck were we talking about?
I'm not even sure where we were.
Characters.
But that was great stuff.
But you also have to put yourself, it's not just the voice. It's not just, the script, but it's also, you've got to incorporate the action. Like, I had this epiphany a few months ago. It's really sad how long it took. But the word animate means to be moving. So for the actors, we have to be moving too, because it's our voices that inform the artists, how they're going to draw. A radio drama, even more so, there's nothing to see. So I have to remind people, if I do this, you can see me, but nobody knows what I just did who's just listening. You have to have a sound for everything. So if I go, you hear it. You know what I just did.
Mm-hmm.
You know it. Right? I'm shrugging my shoulders. People can see it, but people can't see you when you're just a voice actor. So everything you do needs a sound to go with it. And that's you filling in the blanks for the script. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. There actually is I don't know if you're a big Star Wars fan, but The Mandalorian, there is a great photo of Pedro Pascal doing some voice work for The Mandalorian, where he's holding his arm out straight and he's grasping a pillow that is supposed to be Baby Yoda. He literally just exactly what you just said. He is acting the part, every bit of the part, while he's recording his voice work.
Yeah, I don't know how they put that together. My husband's a big Mandalorian fan, but as I say, you have to act the scene. You have to do just as much acting as if you were on stage, except you have to stay on mic. So how do you do that? Yeah. There's like stuff. You've got to find a way to do it. You got to find a way to, throw a ball and stay on mic and, cough and sneeze and whatever you're doing, running, you can't just say, come on with me. Let's run over here. Does not sound as good as, come on with me. Let's run over here. It has to, be organic. And so that's the thing I try to teach people. And they get exhausted. I tell them, animation is a sport, and get ready. If you're not sweating or out of breath when you're done with me, you didn't do something right.
That's great. Well, Katie, it has been great talking to you. I know. Go ahead and tell us one more
Christian
time about.
Nerd Unite! What?
Tell us one. Tell us one more time about your podcast is continuing, correct?
It's not a podcast. It's a show.
Okay. A show.
It's a don't call it a podcast show on YouTube.
Your YouTube show.
However, they can hear it on Anchor if they want to, but we won't get monetized unless they watch it. So if you just put it on YouTube and listen, that's perfectly okay. You don't have to watch. We might miss some fun stuff, but it's okay. I totally get it. It's called Tell Ya Later, TELLYALATER. And you know what? We are continuing doing it, but if you haven't seen it, you've got 52 episodes you can watch. It's Patreon supported, so I must say the patrons get more than what's on YouTube. And
awesome.
And so some shows get, I'm not in charge of production. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, that ended quickly. And like my crew of one's like, well, they have to be patrons to see the rest of it. I'm like, okay, whatever. But
I will
you know,
definitely put links down in the bottom.
And
in
the last 2 episodes was really special. Well, the 2 before this last one, they just put up the best of season 1. But Will and I went to work. Our last recording session in July, crew of one asked us to, shoot behind the scenes. And it's really special, especially if people are fans of Will Ryan. They'll enjoy seeing that because I'm thankful that we did it. It's been a lot of work, but what a wonderful chunk of material we recorded. So I think, you can watch it from the beginning and see if you want to keep watching. I mean, we didn't even have a name in the beginning, okay? This is how cuckoo it was. It was COVID. And they decided they want to do a podcast, and Will want to do a podcast because Sudoku has a YouTube show. Sorry, a YouTube show. Sudoku does. These guys who review Tesla do. So why shouldn't we? Okay, fine. So my husband, who's actually the crew of one, is like getting the room set up to record, and we didn't know what we're doing. He's like, Will's coming over. I'm like, why is he even coming? We don't even have a name for this show. When you have a show, you're supposed to say, hi, welcome to whatever, right? We don't have a show. What am I supposed to say? Welcome to, we'll tell you later. And that's how we got the name of the show.
Nice.
So you never know how things are going to happen. So
I personally like your theme song that it says you don't have a theme song.
We don't have a theme song either, yes. So yeah, it was funny. We went to SonicCon in Virginia, Phil Lawler and me and Kimmy Robertson in October, and this guy walked up and just started singing the whole theme song. And Will kept saying, the theme song's too long. It's the same thing every week. I'm like, it's great. Let's cut it short. Well, this guy came up saying the whole thing to me. I recorded it, and I said, Will, you are outvoted. We're keeping the whole song in. You need the whole thing. And
awesome.
Actually, we've got some songs we recorded that haven't even been put out yet. So yes, Tell You Later is YouTube. My website is katielee.com or voiceofyourchildhood.com.
I was going to say, people can go there and find out a little more about you and a little bit more about voice acting in general, because you do some coaching there. I do.
I do one-on-one if people want it. They shouldn't cry easily if they want me to coach them. I always say that. Just, if you're too sensitive, I'm not going to beat around the bush because
I'm not going to ask you about my voice later.
Your voice is great. I'm very passionate. I didn't realize. I'm a lot like Connie, I guess. I say what I feel is necessary at any given time. And they can see my Connie candles, and they can see our books, and there's and if anybody wants me to come to a convention, I'm perfectly willing to fly.
Awesome. Well, anything else you'd like to tell us before you go, Katie?
Thank you for listening to me. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for wanting me. I appreciate
absolutely.
that.
We have been working on trying to get this together for several months, and it finally happened. And although we had some major technical difficulties.
You
I
guys
think we
who are
finally got
listening
something
or
recorded.
watching have no idea. Ricky should explain to you how we are actually filming this, because this is genius technology at its best. Our internet was crappy and somehow he managed. Look how great he looks, and he is on either his phone or his computer camera through his phone, and the laptop is there to somehow connect us, and this is going to be awesome. And it's going to be one of your most proud moments, I think. Yes.
It is a little ridiculous. Well, Katie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Well, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, click all those links down below, whatever's down there. We really appreciate it. And you can find all of our social links and links to our YouTube channel and our online store at ChristianNerdsUnite.com. And while you're there, click on the support tab. We would love to have you as a Patreon. Before you go, I do want to leave you with this blessing. Lord Jesus Christ, send us out with confidence in your word to tell the world of your saving acts and bring glory to your name. Amen. We'll see you next week. Blessings.